weekend, too. On Saturday, We begin with this report from Simon Israel of Independent Television News.
The protests have spread. On the streets in Colonel Gaddafi's backyard, the capital, Tripoli, demonstrators have had to run for their lives. They've been met with armed resistance. These pictures have evaded the state's internet crackdown. Dozens are said to have been killed. Last night the regime was defiant. One of Gaddafi's sons went on television to proclaim they would fight until the last man standing. He also issued a warning of doom.
There will be civil war. We will go back to the civil war of 1936. We will kill each other in the streets. Libya is not Tunisia or Egypt. Libya has oil, which is unified Libya.
But not for much longer. If reports emerging from the North African country are to be believed, Gaddafi has fled. There's been no sighting of him since he appeared on state TV at the weekend in a choreographed display of popularity. Protesters are said to have taken control of at least half a dozen main towns surrounding Tripoli. In response, military aircraft are reported to have shelled roads leading to the capital and to have fired live rounds on demonstrators in the city itself.
We saw the airplanes go by over us, and it's really bad. Yeah, you can stop before most of the prayer. We still hear gunshots, and it's getting bad. One of my cousins is a doctor. They had to go to the hospital. They were sent back. They were shipping the doctors and people at the hospital.
In contrast, 2 Libyan fighter jets landed in Malta today, amid reports the pilots refused to attack their own people. But Tripoli is becoming more violent by the hour. The UN Secretary General has been in direct contact with the Libyan leader and told him to stop immediately. Even the country's own UN delegation has accused Gaddafi of committing genocide. The focus has shifted from Benghazi to all began. Today, Gaddafi's green flag no longer flies there. It's been replaced by the symbol of freedom, the country's old national flag. But at what cost?
Another enemy of His Imperial Majesty is getting his long overdue, or at least we would say his long overdue comeuppance. And we're speaking of the nut job named Muammar Gaddafi. You understand? Gaddafi duck. You understand? This desert hideout, this bedouin, this descendant from a slave driving family that unfortunately some Negroes think is so Pan-African because he is flamboyant, makes provocative statements, and is real brutal and has a lot of money. You understand? A lot of money that actually belongs, you understand, firstly to Africans. Secondly, it belongs to the majority of those in those countries who are Muslims, and the half of the story that's not being told is that starvation, I mean, many of these oil-rich countries have a high level of unemployment, illiteracy, ignorance, and poverty, and the people over there have been suffering a long time, and some change has begun in that region of the world. We're speaking about North Africa, and we're speaking about the Middle East, and this enemy of Imperial Ethiopia, this enemy of His Imperial Majesty Kedemawi Haile Selassie, this nut job named Muammar Gaddafi, is getting, and hopefully will get, his comeuppance. You understand? Is finally getting, after 40-something years, his comeuppance. You understand? For all of the hatred, hostility to the Davidic and Solomonic throne of Judeo-Christian Ethiopia, and particularly to the person of Kedemawi Haile Selassie, our Godfather. And this is, you know, what was so very interesting is that, like I said a couple of moments ago, there's a lot of Negroes, You understand, over here in the Americas, who are upset with the white man, and you know, and in some cases rightfully, but they fly off and, you know, grasp onto somebody grasping straw. You understand, and this is a scarecrow. You understand, Gaddafi straight up is a scarecrow. They grasp onto him and they say he's a real Pan-African. They like Gaddafi. He's really standing up for something. And they don't know nothing about Libya. They know nothing about North Africa. They know nothing about really Africa. They know nothing about the slave trade, the Mohammedan slave trade, the desert pale red Arab slave trade of their own black people and black brothers. And they don't even know that in these countries such as Libya, you understand, the original flag was red, black, and green. But Gaddafi, as typical dictators do, brings his own flag in, his own little green book, his green flag in there, bringing his mercenaries, bringing his tribe versus the other tribe, has bodyguards, mainly women, as his bodyguards, so he shields himself, you understand, with the mothers, with the sisters, with the daughters, and with the wives. He shields himself and protects himself, you understand, from the threat, figuring that if you're going to try to kill him, you're going to kill one of these women. And in that part of the world, that's a no-no, you understand. So he's using human shields, his own Arab and Muslim women as his human shields. I mean, this guy is so corrupt. And if we really go back to the days of the OAU, and when Muammar Gaddafi Duck, when he came to power, and all the provocative and interference, you understand, within sovereign Ethiopian affairs, supporting the Mohammedans and the Arabs in the north and places like Eritrea against the sovereign government of the King of Kings. It's interesting when you hear these ones talk about it's you know, I think they said the same thing in all these Arab countries. They've been using the same, you know, the same that's outsiders who are interfering with the internal affairs of their nation, causing, you know, the unrest and causing, trying to cause an overthrow and destabilize the government. But this is exactly what Muammar Gaddafi did ever since he came to power, you understand, backed by his slave-driving tribe. You understand, because his tribe is the ruling tribe, and his tribe been ruling since 1780, 1760 something. You understand, and if we would bring up the facts of how they've been ruling through the slave trade, you understand, through enslaving dumbass Africans. You understand? But here's the interesting thing. After they've enslaved the Africans, now they got oil money. So some of these Nollywood Africans, you know, the Oga Africans, you know, they give them, Gaddafi, he'll give money, especially if this one is a Muslim, if this one spouts the same sort of rhetoric and acts in a way that is appealing. You understand? Because they use, you have to know how they use money. You understand? They use money to literally buy people. You understand? When you're coming from a position where your whole clan were slave drivers, it's very easy to use money now in a modern way to buy people, to buy influence, to buy friends, so forth and so on. So on the African continent, you might hear some Africans say, yeah, Gaddafi is a good guy, he's real, he's a Pan-African, he's a Pan-Arab, he's trying to be everything to everybody. You understand? He's trying to be everything to everybody, and he's ending up being nothing. You understand? Nothing to anybody. So Gaddafi is getting his comeuppance. There's much more that we would like to say in this matter, but for the record, you understand, Gaddafi is an enemy and was an enemy of Imperial Christian Ethiopia, Judeo-Christian Ethiopia. Gaddafi was one of the most provocative enemies, because he used that oil-rich money to actually fund mercenaries to destabilize Kedemawi Haile Selassie's government, to pit Eritrea, you understand, and the Muslim population of Eritrea against the Judeo-Christian kingdom of the King of Kings and his Christ. So how could we as King of Kings honoring Rastafari ever support Gaddafi unless we just plain ignorant of the true facts behind the matter? You understand? And if you believe that Gaddafi is a real Pan-African, you understand, he's more Pan-Arab. He's really about that Arab agenda. You understand? And they use Islam, they use the money, they use all of that. And here's the facts of it. Look at his own people. His own people are more than too happy to have an opportunity to change that situation after nearly more than 40 years. More than 40 years of this dictator. You understand? And his son is a nut job too. His son got on state radio or TV saying that it was like crackheads. You know, it was crackheads and drug addicts and stuff like that that was out there protesting against. And he said, listen, you know, you want to go back to the 1930s or something like that? We're going to have blood in the streets. We're going to kill you, because it's all tribal. It's all tribal. We Africans, so-called, we think that it's only the black Africans, you understand, it's only the dark-skinned Africans that are tribalistic, but Gaddafi has ruled by tribalism. And these are super rich pale and red Bedouins, pale and red Arabs, and they would choose to you know, turn their little piece of a desert into oasis just to say that they have their own, than to really help even their less fortunate countrymen. You understand that? And especially their brothers in Islam and al-Islam. In fact, large-scale starvation exists in many of these oil-rich countries like Sudan, like Pakistan, like Algeria, like Morocco, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Libya. You understand? But we only hear about Ethiopia. You understand? We only hear about what happened in Ethiopia. You understand? We don't hear about it. But ask yourself, when you see all these people protesting, all these people out there willing to risk life and limb to have an opportunity to change their situation, ask yourself, why would a super cautious people who've been living with these brutal dictators for nearly half a century, why would they just all of a sudden do what they're doing unless they are so more than desperate? You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to go out there. Because look over here in America. There's a lot of injustices going on in America. You don't see niggas going out there, especially when the cops going to beat them down and arrest them and maybe take them to some FEMA camp somewhere. You don't see niggas out there too long. When they say, do you have your permit to protest? And niggas get off the street, stop protesting. They go home. They go, you know, go to the club, go get a lap dance or something like that. They're not going to be protesting. You see what I'm saying? So ask yourself, what would be the motivation unless you are totally desperate? So we applaud these young Arabs over there in North Africa and the Middle East, a different generation than their elders, than their forefathers, you understand, who are willing to take some risk to change their societies and hopefully change their systems. And hopefully, we hope and pray that it will be for the better and they don't follow in the ways of their racist, slave-driving ancestors, since many of them for most of their life got to taste a little bit of what their ancestors' victims had to taste. You understand? We're speaking about the black people who were enslaved, who were sold, you understand, who were brutalized, who were raped by the likes of Gaddafi, his tribe, his clan, and a whole bunch of these other super rich pale and red Arabs who are ruling throughout North Africa and the Middle East region. So there's more to come there's more to come on this. Stay tuned. We're just happy that an enemy of His Majesty gets to understand what it means. Blowback, or the chickens come home to roost. Now it's Muammar Gaddafi ducks time to stop quacking. You understand? Stop quacking so much. So anyway, I know some of y'all love Gaddafi, and this ain't gonna change that. We don't expect to force any change, but one day, if you don't want to accept the truth from our mouth, and if you don't want to go seek it out for yourself, one day you're gonna find out. And hopefully that day won't be too late. Hopefully it won't be the likes of Gaddafi that you trust, that brutalize you and kill you and murder your family. You understand? All because he got money. He's rich, bitch. You understand? And he can do it. Anyway, more to come. Stay tuned. This is a rapidly changing times that we live in. We live in interesting times.
The weekend too.
And when the Lamb opened the seventh seal, silence covered the sky.
The truth has overcome the lies, the good news of His Majesty in His Christ. And it is vital that we raise our tribal flag, the flag of the conquering lion of the tribe of Yehuda.
Millions of Christians throughout the world, Your Imperial Majesty, will regard you as the reincarnation of Jesus Christ.